In this video, let us cover a very important topic, and that is closures. Now the concept of closures is closely related to scope, which you will understand in this video. Now let us see an example of closure before we understand it in great detail. Let us head over to Visual Studio Code. So closures in JavaScript. So let us define a function that computes the simple interest given the value of principal, rate, and time. Let us define a function that first takes on the value of principal. So let us name it as calculate simple interest. This takes on a value of principal. Now right within this function, let us define a function right inside it. So you can say that for the new function that we are going to define within this function on line 45 will serve as the outer function. So right inside it, let's name this function as use rate and time, and let this function take the other two arguments, the rate and time. Now let us first log the values of rate and time here. So console.log rate and time, and then simply return the computed simple interest. So return principal times rate times time. Let me wrap this in parentheses and divide this by 100. Next, we need to return this inner function at the bottom from the outer function. So return use rate and time, like this. Now this thing that you are seeing right here forms a closure, but you must be wondering what exactly is a closure. From what we know about functions is that every function in JavaScript has a reference to its outer lexical environment. This means that it registers the outer lexical environment and the variables present in there, and it remembers the values of these variables. This means that the reference that gets set up enables the code inside the inner function, which is this one, to see the variables declared outside the inner function, which is right outside this function, but within the calculate simple interest function. So this closure concept enables us to access the variables that are present within the outer function, but outside the inner function from this function, right? Regardless of when and where the function was called. So for the simple interest function, the use rate and time forms a closure with the lexical environment of the execution context, which gets created when the calculate simple interest function is invoked, closing over the variables defined inside the outer function, if any. Now to see everything in action and to get more clarity on this, let us invoke the calculate simple interest function and pass it a value of 1000. So 1000 as the value of principal amount. Now what happens on this invocation is that a new function use rate and time gets created, and in it the value of principal that we are passing right here gets locked, which means it gets substituted right here. And then once this value of principal is locked in this function gets returned as a result of this return statement. So we can store the returned function in which the value of principal is locked into a variable, say substituted principal simple interest SI, like this. So now the value of principal is locked in this function, which we are having right here. Now we need to supply the values of rate and time. So for this we can say substituted principal SI, and here we'll pass the value of rate and time 2, 2. So rate as 2 and time as 2, and let us store the result that we get in a constant, and let us name it as result. So what we are doing right here is that we are running this inner function that already has the value of principal locked inside it, and we are supplying the values of rate and time, and this should give us the final result, right? So let us log the result to the console. So console.log result, like this, and let us give this a preview in the browser to see what we get. And here you can see we are getting 40 as the output, which you can easily visualize. 2 into 2 is 4, 4 into 1000 is 4000, and then you divide that 4000 by 100, which gives us 40, which was the expected output. So to sum it up, if you want a function to always have access to a private piece of state, which we define say right here, or to access this value right inside this inner function, we need to form a closure. So in essence, in JavaScript, if you declare a function within another function like this, then the local variables of the outer function, which is say defined right here, so any local variables defined right within the outer function but outside this inner function can be accessed even after returning from the outer function from the inner function, right? Because of the concept of closures. So this was all I wanted to cover about closures in this video. If you liked the video, do give it a thumbs up or comment down below if you have any query. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the very next one.